again. Welcome back. And another warm welcome if it's your first session with us today. Our next session is led by Jake Quirke, software engineer and accessibility lead at Giant Digital. And Jake will be talking to us about how accessibility shapes the marketing's next chapter. Before I hand over to Jake, I'll quickly share our house rules and pointers for today's session again. So there will be time at the end of the session for questions, so please add your questions to the Q&A box and we'll cover those off at the end. Slides and other resources will be made available after the event. And without any further ado, let me hand over to Jake.
Thank you very much, Laura. So, just for those that need it, I am Jake Quirke. I am currently in my office, and by office I mean my living room, which has a beautiful eggshell white background. A happy birthday sign that should have been taken down weeks ago and a broken sewing machine. I am wearing a lovely light blue t-shirt, which was a bad choice for this weather and this presentation, and a headband, which isn't a style choice. It is purely because of the heat, and I don't respond well to it. I am absolutely boiling, and I'd prefer not to melt all the way throughout this presentation. So let me share my screen and let's get started. And I'm sure the sharing went perfectly. Oh, another great start to a presentation. How fantastic. So this is obviously on how accessibility shapes marketing's next chapter. How I actually want to start that is with this obvious introductory presentation slide. Can you all see that? It's text there. For those that don't know, I'm presenting a slide with a dark blue background and text that is unbelievably blurry. If I was to take my glasses off and the text was nice and clear, this is what I would actually see on my presentation. It would be because of my astigmatism and severe decreasing eyesight, thanks to the hereditary ailments that I will be brought on from my dad and my granddad. So I've got lovely cataracts to look forward to in the future. Cannot wait. What I'm trying to get across to you before we even get into the details of this presentation is put yourself in this perspective. If you are looking at a screen, for those that are able, and you see text that is just indecipherable, you can kind of make it out. How does that make you feel? And that's not a rhetorical question. I actually want you, if you are making notes, anything that you're doing, ask yourself the question, how is that making you feel? Because that's the feeling you're going to have when you're on a website. You're going to get a strange feeling. And it most likely is, for the most part, quite negative. Let's freshen this up with a slide where the text is nice and clear. How accessibility shapes marketing's next chapter. And as I've said, I'm Jake Quirke and I work for Giant Digital. So let's get straight into it. Before I actually talk about how accessibility is going to shape the next chapter, I actually want to talk about how inaccessibility shapes marketing right now. With another visual example on this slide, we will see a same blue, dark blue background with text that is somewhat lighter blue, somewhat green. Some of you who are viewing this and reading this information may be able to actually understand and read through it already. That's fantastic. But there's some of you that will not be able to. Some of you won't even be able to be viewing any slides whatsoever. So again, I ask that question, how is that making you feel? Are you frustrated? Or are you in this feeling of, I feel completely fine, I'm not bothered at all? And I'm hoping I can persuade you otherwise to think, how are people feeling as they look at slides and how they respond to a website? How are they feeling going through your website and how are they going through your marketing campaign? But things aren't always as extreme as I've just put them across. I'm going to take an example of Giant Digital's own brand palette and show you the wide variety. So it's not just very obvious contrast issues when it comes to color schemes on a website. I'll start by talking about the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or the WCAG or WCAG, depending on how you say it. It follows a process of either being a AA pass or fail or a AAA pass or fail. AAA is like the highest standard, but AA tends to be the one that is like the point of entry, let us say. In that last slide, we saw something that's quite challenging to read for a lot of viewers. However, there are some nuances. With my glasses and my vision, I can read all the text on the screen, which is fantastic, whether it's white on red or green on black. I can read everything, but not everyone is going to be able to read everything on a screen, if at all. So I do want you to take it, as I'm going to be using a few examples, do try to think of the nuances within each example as well. It's not always going to be as rigid as I suggest. So what do I mean? Let's go to the slide where it should actually be, not contrast issues, but lovely white text on a dark blue background that you will be able to read, those that are able to read along with the slides. This is the actual problem that I do want to talk about. This marketing funnel, as I'm sure many of you already know, the marketing funnel starts with those reaching of people, going further down, hoping to reach for that final conversion right at the bottom. And people do trickle out as you go through. But the issue with accessibility is it's turning the marketing funnel into a marketing colander where you are losing so much because you're not thinking about accessibility when it comes to your marketing, especially digital marketing, more specifically a website. I'll go into a specific stat of roughly 1 in 4 people in the UK live with a disability. That is a huge proportion of people. I know accessibility is very important to me. It's part of who I am, and it's very, very significant. Some of you might not be thinking like that, and that's perfectly fine. Some of you are thinking of revenue. How is accessibility actually going to help my business, my charity, etc.? And that's where the purple pound comes in. That is that 1 in 4 people. That spending capability of people with a disability. And within the UK alone, it ranges from 274 to 446 billion pounds. That is a huge amount of revenue. So if you're not going to be persuaded by the things I'm trying to do with the way this presentation is going, I hope you take on board this idea that it's a massive gap in revenue that I really want to push. Because if you're assuming that this funnel is going to assume 100% of people are going to be viewing it, the reality is quietly that 25% is not even coming close to a conversion. And on top of that, people think accessibility is just about disability. And on the ground level, it certainly is. It's to stop people with a disability feeling restricted on a website or in the digital space. It goes well beyond that. You want your website to feel comfortable for a parent who's gone on 2 hours sleep and needs to think of something that they need to buy because they forgot it for a holiday they're going on the next day. You want them to feel comfortable. They might not necessarily have a disability, but they're going through their website. They don't want it to be laborious. They do not want it to feel like so much effort. It's the same with a person walking on the phone, needing to transfer some money, but they can't see because this harsh July heat wave sun is pushing down their phone and they're not able to see it because there are lots of contrast issues. Just a few examples that I'm trying to put across. If we change this marketing calendar into the funnel that it deserves to be, you're taking in more than the 1 in 4. It's going to include so many more people. What I'm trying to say is fixing this does not start and end with an accessibility audit or the better color contrasts or less blurry text. That is where it's going to actually start. What do we have here? Another slide. Oh dear. And what we can see, the same colored background, and this time the text is infinitesimally small. If, like it going to the opticians, better or worse, it's no difference for me. If I come all the way here, that's when I can actually read the text. And by here, I mean really getting close to my laptop to be able to see the text. That's too much. That's showing us that people are getting left behind, which, as I go on to the next slide, the text is a bit larger. More people will be able to engage with this next slide. Not everyone, but more people, a point I'll come on to later. What do I mean by people are getting left behind, especially in the digital world? I'm going to use myself as an example. I'm not trying to pull at your heartstrings so much. I'm just stating a fact. I have been diagnosed with OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder. How that impacts me, it varies day to day. So one is when walking my children to school, I have to avoid the cracks in a certain way that I have to count 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 on my foot, and the foot has to go over the crack on the 12 in the right way, because at the same time, I have to click my wrist over and over again on 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I'm almost getting myself into a loop. But luckily, I've learned strategies to overcome that, but not every time. What I mean by people are getting left behind is because the WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, doesn't necessarily mention guidelines explicit to my needs as someone with OCD. It's more implicit, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because OCD and so many things within mental health are quite tricky to pin down because they're so varied person to person, which is what I'm trying to say is if you've got a guideline, that's fantastic as a foundation. But you need to think of it, it's definitely stopping you from restricting people, but it doesn't allow them to feel welcome, is what I'm trying to say. And I hope that's coming across. Another example is the fact that I work closely with our web designer, and she creates some fantastic work. And occasionally there's things on it that just don't feel right to me as a user. And I think that is a beneficial conversation to have. I know I'm not going to be able to tick every single box with OCD. The only thing that I will say outright is I'm not going to work with anything in terms of plumbing. I'm not doing a website for a plumber, I'm afraid. I just can't. Plugs, pipes, something just doesn't sit right with me, and it'll ruin my day if I have to look at it too much. Daily plugs are awful for me. Tangent, let's get back to it. I'm saying the digital world is being left behind. What do I mean by that? I'm meaning that direct mail, TV, print, as a general view, there are exceptions. They've developed to be broadly consumable. And it almost seems like websites, despite the hard work that the accessibility community are going towards, they're going the other way. There's like more friction and it's less human. These steps that we're wanting to take, that money, it became just less inclusive because it's becoming more and more complex. And that is tricky. But no, not as many people as you want is going towards it, because people are just assuming we have an engineer here, they're taking care of it, or someone's taking care of it. Someone is handling it somewhere. Let's just hope for the best. We need to flip that because it's going to reach far more people and be more beneficial to your marketing and your brand than you expect. And that comes to the point that I really, really want to fight and push as much as I possibly can. I haven't just cut out there. I haven't just muted. I've just carried on for those that are able to view my screen, and I've just stopped audibly speaking. I've carried on as normal. But for many people, that will experience be quite uncomfortable. There's just a pause. What's happened? Nothing's happened. I'm just using another example that's more audio focused than the visual. Over this presentation, we've talked about blurry text, contrast issues, and smaller text. It's not just text, and it's not just what you visually see on a website, even though those things like fantastic animations, videos, all these things make a website really pop. Some people aren't going to see that. They need things there. And I hope that comes across in what I'm trying to say. When I cut out, people feel like they're missing out on a part of the presentation. Luckily, that's not the case. It is me deliberately stopping my talking to make the point that people will miss out if you're not careful with the accessibility on your website, for example. So I'm saying don't rely on the WCAG. Just, okay, that's a legal tick box. Don't rely on quick fixes. Don't rely on these small things. work with your users as much as you can, because that's what creates true impact. If I was with a user who having the perfect day, had no disabilities, they would not engage with that. Oh, they've muted. They'd just tell me, oh, you've gone on mute. You've gone on mute. You need to come off. They'd just kind of not understand it. And what I'm trying to say is you need to work with these people so you don't drop off each individual person. So someone's dropped off because of the blurred text. Someone's dropped off because of the color contrast. Someone's dropped off because of the small text. Someone has dropped off because they cannot actually engage, because they cannot hear the things that are on their screen reader. They are missing parts of a website that they are valuable to them, even though they're not even aware it actually exists. I've got some examples on my screen here. One is a very physical one. Accessibility just doesn't rely on the digital sphere. It's the real world originally and still continues to be. The curb cut effect. Let's remember those ramps in the street, little bumps going towards the road. They were originally built for, let's say, wheelchair users. They're now used for strollers, which is a big help for parents. Like, no more having to like do that little wheelie, as fun as it may be, onto a big curb. They can just easily go through. It's for suitcases, it's for trolleys, it's for so many people. And we take it for granted now. That's just a part of our existence. The same can be said for captions on videos. They were built for deaf users. However, only yesterday, I was on YouTube watching a 1 hour video on the Plantagenet dynasty, and I didn't want to bore my partner to death with it. So it was on mute, and I just listened to it. Well, listened to it hypothetically through the captions as it was on mute. And I had a wonderful time. And I wish I could talk about the Plantagenet dynasty, but that's for another time. That's for after lunch. I'll be doing a 3 hour lecture on that. Lucky you. No, I'm only joking. So, what I'm trying to get forward is accessibility does not just serve the minority. The more it's actually done, the more it's engaged with more people, it's not going to serve a minority. It will upgrade the experience for everyone, which is a huge amount of people. And I hope we can come to that point. That's not always going to be the focus. I know I've said before we're pulling on the heartstrings a little bit, but I do want to get to some real tangible things that you're able to do and things that go beyond accessibility. And that's where we come to the very purpose of this whole presentation. Marketing's next chapter. We originally thought, well, we know that personalization seems to be about targeting people, like specific ads. I'm convinced my phone is listening to me. As an example, I say something and there's an ad about it. That doesn't feel like it's serving them. It's getting them to want things that they actually might be interested in. But the actual thing that they're using, the tool, the website, the application, is it actually serving them? So you need to think building for everyone can really help to flip that completely. An experience that can meet people where they are. And I'm not just talking about accessibility as a whole, because accessibility can help push marketing's next chapter, but with it, it's going to pick up a lot more. Let's take the example of SEO and GEO, AI in general. That with an changes to accessibility, your SEO and GEO are going to have a much better time. The examples are using simplistic language, which is and more appropriate headings. A good one for those more technically savvy is on a website, you need to start your page with an H1 heading right at the top. It needs to be there. And then you filter down to H2, H3, H4, 5, 6. If you go from H1 to H6, you are messing with the structure, and that's going to be unsettling for people with screen readers who are going to be confused by the structure. It's skipping large portions of information. And we're missing one of the most important users. And despite all this talk of people and how important it is for individuals, this is might be the most important user that we don't necessarily always consider unless you're in SEO or working with GEO. And that is the Google bot or the search engine index crawlers. Those things that even if a user despises going through your site because they cannot engage with it, one is going to return, and it's that bot that is going to analyze every little bit just to see how well you're performing in terms of SEO. It's going to look for key bits of information to help see what's the most appropriate information for GEO. It's going to really focus if we use our accessibility, because they go hand in hand. And if you use that, you're going to get your most useful user to help boost your revenue. AI in general responds to very simplistic language, and it responds to, what's the word I'm trying to look for? It responds well to a clear outline, clear structure. It responds well to alt text, just a little highlight. Don't forget your alt text in your imagery. This is what I really want to stress as much as possible, because for those that aren't taken in by my points on how valuable SEO is to individual people, it can have so much value in terms of your revenue and how to boost your brand to so many more people just by changing a few things, just by changing a few headers, making your website keyboard accessible, making the structure and information not only simplistic and readable for more people, but simplistic and readable and most engaged for the bots that are going to be crawling your site on a weekly, monthly basis. And this is not going to be about those brands that shout the most about, look at what we're doing for accessibility, which you definitely should do. It's nice to promote accessibility. It's going to come from those people that are being active with their accessibility. What is currently in place is a guideline 2.2, WCAG 2.2. In the future, that is going to change to 3.0. That's not fully finalized, of course, but what is going to happen is they're going to shift towards make sure you audit your website on a consistent basis, because if you've got an accessibility statement on your website that says we are fully compliant right now, that's a dangerous area to be. You want to say we were compliant on this day, but we can't guarantee. There is things happen to a website. Think of a road. A road newly built is fantastic, but it's going to crumble over time. It's going to get potholes. For a road, the thing that's going to matter is how quickly are the council going to fix that pothole. If they're going to just leave it, like my area, it's not a great council. If it's those councils that are putting that time in to fix these issues, that's fantastic, and it's going to come across. It's going to show individual people that they're putting the effort in, and that's what you need to show. You don't need to show that you're absolutely perfect, because that's borderline impossible. You need to just show we're doing what we can. These are the things that we're trying to improve and we want to improve, but these are the things that we want you to look at as well. Involve your users as much as you can. Ask them if you notice anything on our website that doesn't feel right for you. Just let us know and we can figure out a solution together. You show people that you are trying to focus on accessibility. That's another box ticked for you, in that you can get people engaged with you that you've never even thought of before. And before you even engage those users, what I'd actually like you to start doing is a little challenge before you think of anything else, any other user, because you've optimized this every step of your funnel. It's fantastic. Your campaign is great. I've no denying that, except the one that it really matters, the bit that a human can use, that final bit, a website, whether, even if as an engineer, you might not like it, that a website is a marketing part, is a part of marketing. It literally is. You just need to understand that you're missing out so much. It's becoming that colander that we've talked about. And it's because you need to think about a little challenge I'd like to put forward to you. What I would like you to give it a go is try and reach an important part of your website, whether that's signing up for a volunteering with your charity, or a donation form, a sign up page for a series of events, or buying something, whatever it may be, a piece of clothing. Try to get there without your mouse using your keyboard. And what I mean by that, the easiest way to do that is use your tab key. And you should be able to go across every interactable. That's links, that's things you want a person to be able to click on, anything on your site, and ask yourself the question, can you get there? And not just on top of that, what do you feel when you're going through there? That question returns. How do you feel on your website? Do you feel welcome? Are you enjoying the experience? Is it easy? And as you go through on the keyboard, you won't just realize either my keyboard navigation on the site is fantastic. You might notice that button, the contrast could improve here. This video that I've got as a massive hero on my website, maybe it needs some captions, or maybe you need to let screen readers know this is a video, or you need a pause option for the video. These things, once you start to just think, how is it a different user going to feel with this? The more you're going to realize I can do so much here and I can improve my marketing so much just by adding a little bit of empathy to the way you approach things. And through it, your revenue can improve, your SEO, your GEO, how AI and bots respond to you. And most importantly to me, how users respond to me. Now, I believe we're going to go on to QA. So what I'd like to do, if not everyone was able to ask the questions that they want, I'm Jake Quirke. My email's right there. There's also a QR code there to go into our website for more comments on accessibility. And that is it. Give the
Brilliant.
challenge a go. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really interesting. Like, yeah, there's much food for thought in that. Thank you. Um, we've had a few questions in, which is great. So, carousels on LinkedIn uploaded as PDFs have been the best way for us to get engagement and useful analytics on that platform, but they aren't accessible to screen readers and there isn't an alt text option. What are some of the ways we can make LinkedIn a bit more accessible?
Wow. Oh, that is a good question. With PDFs, I'll start with PDFs in particular. There are ways to make sure it's as accessible as possible. I've mentioned things like heading hierarchies, making sure there are clear headings all the way throughout a PDF, making sure your links are clickable, and that's done through user testing. In terms of LinkedIn, a good thing is what you're doing here. You're offering multiple ways for a person to engage with a presentation, whether it's me speaking or whether it's on a presentation slides. So on LinkedIn, just ask the question, is there anything we could do? Is there a format that you would prefer? There's nothing wrong with just asking people, how can we help? If you don't know the answer, you might as well say, I'm not sure. What's best for you? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Thank you so much. I think that's yeah, it's a little bit what you said earlier about like not starting small and not starting because you don't know where to start. It's yeah, it's really good. Thank you very much. Um, there are accessibility tools that people can use on websites, but how much do they help? And do you think AI is helpful for finding and solving accessibility issues on our website?
I'll start with the accessibility tools because it
Mm.
kind of branches into certain criteria. I'll start with overlays that are used on websites. I strongly recommend never using overlays because it's essentially as if you were well, you are everyone's a person. A person with a broken leg needs the leg fixed. An overlay or tools like this is just a little plaster on the top. It's not really helping the situation. And on top of that, I'll use the example of a website where I go to pay my water bill. They had an overlay for accessibility on it. And I don't tend to need screen readers or the ability to keyboard access, but the whole thing was blocking my ability to just get onto the website. It's like having a ramp up to your shop followed by 20 flights of stairs. It's yeah, and the wider accessibility community do recommend these tools aren't ideal. On top of that, AI, I'd say, is a very valuable tool, but I think we should remember that it is a tool. It shouldn't be the be all and the end all. You can definitely use it in your auditing or to improve certain things, but the final person to have the review is the user or the person performing an accessibility audit. I think it's the same with all parts of using AI. AI is great, but don't forget, give it a test, give it a review, and just make sure everything is to the standard that you want it to be. I hope that answers the question. I think it does.
Yes, that's great. Thank you. Um, could you just explain a little bit more about what you meant about by an overlay?
So, if it's an accessibility tool, there's a little, let's say, a little circle in the corner of a website, and you click on it, and it says, we can change the background. We can have a dark mode of the site. We can change the font text. Um, what I'd recommend is those things can be done, but they can be done in the actual foundations of the website. The code of the website can have these tools already in place. A lot of people just see it as this widget. I can just buy that widget and just throw it onto the website. It strangely, it blocks a lot of users that already have their own strategy to go through a website. So if you're blocking someone from using their own screen reader that they use, that's making the website more inaccessible. So yeah, I'd always veer against using those types of tools if you can just make the actual code of your website strong from the very start. That's why I say build once and then it's good for everyone, because if it's from the foundation, you're not going to have any problems as much. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for, but thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, it's been a really interesting presentation. So yeah, thank you. And we're now headed to lunch. So we've got a short 20-minute break before the next session. So yeah, we'll see you again shortly at about 1.